boys and girls, but there are no boys here. Okay, girls and moms. So I would love to introduce you guys to Dr. Lau. Why don't we just do a short introduction? Is everyone here? I think so. The auditorium is quite full. So the last person that came in, was there a long line outside? No? Okay, good. Okay, so we can start. So I would love to introduce you guys to Dr. Lau, Rebecca Lau. She was raised in New Zealand and came to Hong Kong for love, passing the medical licensing exam. She continued her medical career in Hong Kong, completing her fellowships in the Hong Kong College of Family Practice and the Royal Australian College of General Practice, and her postgraduate diploma in dermatology. She has felt blessed with a loving family, solid friendships, and friendly patients. For a girl who had never thought of leaving New Zealand, she's constantly surprised by how quickly her 20 years in Hong Kong have flown by. After many good years in a busy multi-doctor clinic, she's grateful to have successfully completed her first year of her own clinic called H3 Medical Clinic in Central. So please give a warm welcome to Dr. Rebecca Lau.
Thanks, Julie. So, it's such a pleasure to be here seeing all you mums and daughters and all of you guys being able to have this conversation about something that I don't remember ever having a conversation with my mum about. It was kind of like, I'm younger than I look. So when I grew up, it was like, oh, what's this on my underwear? And that was the introduction to puberty. I don't know how many of you have had that experience, but I think it's just a wonderful thing that you guys can come and talk and just share with each other about your own experiences. Because we know that for mothers and daughters, often when you start your periods, when you stop your periods, how your flow is like, there's a lot of genetics involved, and so there's a lot of times that you will find that your daughter has a similar experience as you. And then girls, you really can know that mum does understand because she has been through it all. Can you guys hear me? Am I speaking too loud, too softly? Is it good? Yeah? Okay. So thank you, Julie, for the slides. When we talk about puberty, it's not just the physical changes, although that's what's externally as well as most marked. When we are going through puberty, the greatest change actually is taking place in your brains. And the timing is different from everyone. So, say for example, at age 13 or 12, there's a huge spread. You might have been growing up with your friends, you're at CIS, you started off together, and then all of a sudden you're at really different places. One of you may feel like, I have got nothing going on, nothing has changed. And another friend might be like, quite developed and having their periods already. So in this time frame, we can feel a little bit unusual sometimes because some of our closest friends may be developing at a different rate, but there's no right time frame. There is a really quite a broad spread. Normally it's going to be between the ages of 10 to 14, usually about 11, 12 is quite a common time. And then you will see kind of like physical changes quite quickly, externally. But most importantly, as I said, the biggest changes goes on in your brain. Your hormones are being flooded. The external changes you'll see are things that are obvious. You're going to become having more of a womanly shape. So it all starts with your breast bud development. Normally after breast bud development, do you guys know what breast bud development is? It's like when underneath the nipples, it feels like a little bit firm. And sometimes it can actually even be sore or tender. But you don't actually have breasts yet. These are called buds. So like buds, they're kind of like a little bit nodular, a little bit hard, and they can stay like that for some time before they start to grow. Then next you'll notice that you get pubic hair. So that's hair between the legs, and sometimes on the legs, and then armpit hair. I don't want to stay too long here. If you guys have things to talk about, we can talk about that later. Go past this. Go past this. Go past this. Actually. things that you might start to notice is that I smell different. And commonly, when I was growing up, this was like, ew, he's got BO. I think we're probably more sensitive these days, but sometimes it can be quite strange to have new smells emanating from your body. And that's not because it's dirty or there's anything you're not washing well. It's because when the hormones are triggered, they tell the chemical messengers in your body to release different chemicals. So oils are secreted more and differently, and they combine with the bacteria that's already on your body to create more interesting odors. Okay, so when you find this, you'll have two options that you can use. You can go au naturel, of course, that's the third option. Just be free. Otherwise, you can try antiperspirants. These don't do anything for the smell, but they can just reduce the amount of sweating involved. And then there are deodorants. This is from Julie. Lovely list there. Many, many are available. Just be careful with deodorants. I don't actually think that girls really smell that much. I don't know why, but girls don't really have that much BO. But if you want to use something, test it on a small area first, because people can get rashes from using different types of antiperspirants or deodorants, okay? And then these are usually applied well before you think you might use them when the skin is dry. And they usually last a few hours. Some of you might have started to get spots on your face, acne, zits. This is not, again, because of bad hygiene or eating too much chocolate or chips, though that's what Chinese doctors will say, and there probably is truth in that, but the main thing is because, again, hormones create more oil secretion widens the pores in our skin. There's always bacteria around, and these can go inside the pores, and there's some inflammation, and boom, out comes a zit. You know, your mums will know about this. Some of us more or less blessed with hormonal acne. So your mums will know that before they get their period, sometimes the heralding of imminent period is a spot or two. Hopefully not more than that once you're 30 years old. So things you can do. First thing is just wash your face every day. You don't need to use a special wash, just a nice gentle cleanser. And then after you wash, make sure you moisturize. And if you have spots, ask your mum, and she'll give you something topically to put on. And if it's quite nasty, like you have a lot of them, they're hard to control, they're painful, they form like bumps on your skin, that's when you usually will see your doctor, and then we have other things to use. Most people won't need anything too strong though. If you have a zit, please do not squeeze, okay? It's so tempting. But squeezing is often what causes worse inflammation, more pain, pus, and we don't want to get scars. Because you know what? Even if you get spots for the moment, they'll go away, but scars won't. So I don't know, do you guys do biology or like puberty talks? I mean, you probably have seen all these before, but that is where the baby will grow. That's your womb or the uterus. Then ovaries, then the egg is released from the ovary, goes down the fallopian tube, goes into the uterus, and the sperm goes up, meets the egg, and if that's fertilized, the lining will thicken up in response to that, and then a baby is born. Nothing that you need to talk about or know about at this point of your lives, ladies, but if there is no fertilization, every month this is what you will get, a period. It will shed, okay? So after breast buds develop, usually about 2 years later, around that, is when you would expect to have your first period. Why does puberty start? Does anybody know? Why does puberty, why all of a sudden do breast buds grow and we get hair and smelly and spots? It's because hormones. So what are hormones? They're just chemical messengers. The hormones that spring out that cause puberty, we actually don't really know why it happens at around, for girls, age 10 to 14. We don't know. I think it's something about you reach a certain weight or height, body mass, amount of fat on the body, that the body signals, the signals get set up from a place in the brain, deep inside the brain called the hypothalamus. It sends out these hormones, chemical messengers, to signal to the pituitary to produce different hormones. They signal to the ovaries to produce different hormones to trigger the onset of puberty. So sometimes puberty can start too early, okay? It can start before age 8. So say you have a friend or a little sister and she's starting to get breast buds already when she's 7. Or there looks like there's something that's changed, she's starting to get acne. This is too early and this needs to be seen about. And on the other end, if you're 15 and you don't have any signs of puberty starting, no breast bud, no body hair, no periods, then this is also at a time that probably you want to just get things checked out. It's unlikely to be anything. Some people just start very late, and if all the women in your family started to have periods at 16, that's just going to follow the same pattern. But for most people, if by 15 you don't have any signs of puberty about to start, that's a good time to check in with your doctor. So what happens when you have a period? So as before we said, okay, the blood just comes out of the uterus, flows right out. For some girls, it's going to be quite crampy or quite sore. Because the muscles, the uterus, the womb is actually a muscle. So just like when you worked out really hard, you've kind of done a lot of lifting of heavy bags, you've gone up a hill, your muscles in your arms and legs can feel sore, your uterus can feel sore too. We don't know why some people have more pain and others have less pain. If you have a lot of pain, please go speak to your mum about it, because it is not, period pain is not something that you have to put up with. Again, when maybe your mums were little, you just heard like, oh, Auntie so-and-so, she has such bad pain. It's just so terrible being a woman. She vomits and she has headaches when she has a period, and people just put up with it. But you don't actually have to put up with period pain. Mild pain is quite common, a bit of cramping for a moment or two, but if it's severe, it means that you can't go to school because you're still uncomfortable. There's definitely things that can help. Small things that you can do at home, like putting a warm pack over your tummy or taking Panadol, or sometimes we use stronger medications. Some things that can affect your period will be, okay, if I am, and I don't think anybody here is actually probably the other way. If you're really having too lean body mass, so you don't really have much body fat, you exercise a lot, use up a lot of energy, there's a lot of stress on your body, and you're not getting enough nutrients, your body may say, hey, you know what, I don't think this body is ready to carry a baby. We're not going to let her go through puberty, or we're not going to let her ovulate. The other opposite is true as well. If the body has a little bit too much adipose, so too much body fat, if there's a lot of high-fat diet being eaten, a lot of calories being intaken, the body also can get tricked and think, hey, I'm ready to get started on this kind of fertility process, and that's one of the causes of people going into early puberty. No, wait. Okay. I don't know about this. This is maybe something to hand over to Julie. I'm like, is there sanitary swim underwear?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. Okay, she will tell you more about it, because that's always one of the things. When you have your period, what if you have swim class? So I think there's some products here that she will talk about as well. Generally, you can go home and ask Mum to show you her stash. So there are different types, right? There are some for light days and some for heavier days. Because everybody has a different amount of blood loss. If you're really iron deficient, sometimes your body will try to conserve the amount of blood loss you have through your period by not letting you bleed too much, okay? Some people get iron deficient because they bleed too much. So it's quite variable. Once you start getting periods, please look out for feeling tired, having quite a lot of heavy or painful periods, because it may be that if you are losing too much blood in every period and you're low in iron, that's going to affect your energy and your concentration and your brain thinking skills, okay? So if you start to feel tired or you think you're having a lot of bleeding, please speak to your mum. What is a lot of bleeding? Well, anything that you have clots in, or you have to change a pad. So you know there's like light flow days, and then there's what the big mama ones for nighttime. If you are kind of maybe a regular pad here and here on the heaviest days, and you feel like, wow, I have to change this every few hours, otherwise the blood kind of isn't contained, it kind of will leak out. Or you have clots, which is kind of like, do you guys know congealed blood? Like if you have congee, you know, like there's kind of like blobs of, you know, red stuff. Like it's like blobs of blood, okay? So generally you don't want to have too many blobs of blood, because that's a heavy flow as well. These are some eco-friendly products, which I was not aware of. Again, Julie will tell you about these. And period panties. These are new to me. At Uniglow and Thinks and various brands. I didn't realize there were specifically made ones to harbour the panty or panty liner or pad well. So apart from panty liners and pads, there are also tampons. If your flow is not heavy enough, don't use a tampon. And usually I'd suggest that starting later, when you're more comfortable with your body, how it feels like, when you're having maybe heavier periods or flow, these can be very convenient when you don't want to have of course you're not going to be wearing like your giant mama ones in the daytime. If you need to wear these ones in the daytime, you probably need to speak to somebody because there's too much bleeding. But even something that's light, it can be quite chafing if you're doing a lot of activity. That's when like tampons can be helpful. But if you don't have very much blood flow, it can be a little bit uncomfortable to put in, because tampons should not be uncomfortable to put into the vagina. Okay, so there's a picture here. So this is where your urine comes out, this is where your poops come out, and this is this lovely flexible elastic thing called the vagina. It looks kind of small, you're thinking like, am I going to get one of these things inside? Yes, because it is stretchy. If you have pain putting a tampon into your vagina, then usually that's just because the muscles are too tight and it's a bit stressful, so you're feeling a bit anxious. But still, talk to your mum, check it out, just to make sure there's no structural thing. There's nothing kind of like blocking the flow of the tampon. But if you've been bleeding for a little while, you've been having your periods regularly, and there's no obstruction to the flow, there shouldn't be any difficulties putting in a tampon either, okay? I'm just talking a little bit more tampons, so we're all comfortable with the word, because sometimes I think that's one of the things we don't talk as much about, and putting the first one in can be a bit daunting. So they can offer a lot of freedom, but when you have light flow, don't use these, okay? Sometimes they can cause some irritation, so trying to buy ones, I mean, good brands, if you're very, very sensitive, you have very sensitive skin, choosing a kind of like a very gentle, organic-y cotton product is probably a good thing as well. When you're older, there are other products to use. You might talk to mum, there are things that are more environmentally friendly, cups and whatnot, but for right now, these are two good choices. Are we going to break and have them talk with their mums now for this, Julie?
For the next section.
Okay.
We'll vote.
Shall I keep on going? All right. So, oh, look. I want to say, mums, do you recognize any of this? Because I have like a lot of mums who go like, you know, I thought I was going to kill somebody and slap somebody, And then my period came, and I felt fine again. So, when you guys go through puberty, you might notice that you have emotions that you never really felt before. Like, you've been always relaxed and chilled out and, feel comfortable talking, have a good chats with your mum, and all of a sudden, you start to have rebellion. And then your parents go, oh, she's now a teenager. Cut them some slack, because the brain is going through tremendous growth. And the hormones affect the brain in two ways. One is the actual structure of the brain. The estrogen, the testosterone, and women have testosterone too. Just about 1/10 to 1/20 what guys get. But women get testosterone too. It's just changed to estrogen really quickly. But estrogen, testosterone, they actually change the way the structure of the brain looks, because the way they attach onto the brain cells, where they attach, how many there are. So the brain is going through structural change. It's also, hormones will change the way our brains react to situations. So your one sweet girl who would cuddle up to you and now says, no, just leave me alone. She says, there's a lot going on inside to process. The one thing I'd say is, this time is really important to just, and everybody's different. Like, it's very nice for me to be in a room of mums and girls, because I don't really get to talk about this with my own kids, because I have 3 boys. So it's very different. They have a lot of testosterone, some estrogen too. But it's, my journey with them through puberty has been very smooth. 2, anyway. The 3rd one we don't know, but he's a sweetheart, so let's hope it's just cruising. So when you hear like, oh my gosh, stories of Mrs. Mums, I don't know if this is your first daughter going through puberty or she's the last and you're just kind of enjoying your time here. You might have friends saying like, oh my gosh, everything changed when she went 14 going on 30, right? Everything changed. But everybody is really different. And some people, they have the hormones, even though their brains are being flooded, they remain very sort of like mellow and chill. And for other people, it is really dramatic, the effects. One day you're saying the same words in the same way, and one day they're taken with love, joy, and delight, and then another day they're taken with tears and slamming and I won't do it, you can't make me. Because the brain is kind of being influenced and it's deciding how it wants to react in any given time. And sometimes words come out, actions come out that don't get all the way to the frontal lobe to get thought about. They just come out, all right? And then it's too late to take it back. So one thing I suggest with this period of time is just talk a lot. And know that it's just a phase and it will move on. And if you continue to talk, you are actually helping to train your own brains, your daughter's brains, and even your own, because our brains are plastic. It's just they're really plastic in this period of time in this area. Because our brains like reward. So whatever we get rewarded for, they're going to get better and better at doing and faster at doing. If you are feeling under the influence of hormones, that you're getting really moody, and the response by your parents to that is that you might get told off, or you might get into a fight. The brain actually learns from these experiences. Okay, this is a negative experience. I don't want to share. The parents don't understand me. No one understands me, and it goes down a negative spiral. But if this is an opportunity to have a calm space for your brains to learn, it's okay to freak out from time to time. I just need some moment to process, to think through. Then it feels safe. And then the next time something happens that makes it uncomfortable or have a strange reaction that you normally don't or wouldn't have, it feels comfortable to say, I can get through this. We'll just talk through it, take some time out, and then we'll talk again later when I'm feeling calmer. Oh, petty rules? I don't know. I think of them as petty, but maybe when I was 12, I thought of them as being petty. I don't know. So, you know, take some time out. Everybody can get stressed, but just take some time. If Bum Bim seems stressed at times when you need her, it's okay. Because mums are human too. But she'll always want to hear from you, and she'll always want to give you the time when she can. So don't be afraid to speak up when you are just not feeling great. So how to survive puberty? Lots of sleep, eat well, stay active. Oh, this is what I say to my people who are depressed. If you don't have these three things, you will not survive. There's not any medication we can use or things you can do. If you don't have these three, you have to sleep. And that means that you guys, I don't know, do you have a lot of homework? You might have a lot of homework. If you have a lot of homework, make sure you have some buffer zone, some buffer time. And if it's just too much, and just speak to somebody about it, because you're not going to be 50 and look back at this time and say, oh my gosh, when I was 12, I didn't complete all my homework on time. Sorry, teachers. You know. But it's going to be, you're going to need to be practical about it, because we've got some years to get through, and when you're not sleeping well, aiming for this amount, some people need less, some people need more, but giving yourself a good time that you sleep by and wake by, good routines, is going to make everything else much more difficult. So eating well, you can snack, healthy snacks, don't skip meals, don't go on health fads and be like, you know, this person on Instagram said this thing and now I can't eat any bananas ever because I'll be fat, you know. Speak to your parents, you know, because fads will come and go. And be active. You've got to move. Even, and it may look different for different people. Some of you really like exercise and you might be involved in clubs, things that now they've started up, and you might be out playing soccer or doing something for an hour and a half. Or you might just want to go for a 20-minute walk, but do something every day. If you want a good period tracker, there's lots online. There's one called Clue, C-L-U-E, I think, or C-L-U, Period Tracker Lite. There's many different ways that you can keep an eye on what's happening. Because when you first start having periods, they may not be regular. And just like your mum will experience mood swings before her period, you may experience mood swings too. But also you can have mood swings even when your period's not coming, because sometimes you won't bleed every month. So sometimes having a tracker or a diary can be helpful if you want to see what kind of pattern is coming up. It may take like 2 years to get a kind of regular rhythm. And the first time after you have your period, the majority of girls will have another period within the 3 months. But some people might not have a period again for another 6 months. It can be really highly erratic in those first 2 years. Anything else, Judy? Do you want to add anything?
Yes, speaking of period calendar, everyone received one of these? The back page of the ACE4 size, there's your period calendar. You could use that, okay? To keep track of your period. Onto the packet, might as well explain. So for this little booklet, this is an activity guide to, you know, just read about with your mom. Any questions, there's multiple choice, and the answers are there. You can do that with your mom. And there's some FAQs, Q&As from popular books. And the next slide, I think there are 4 or 5 books that are posted up, and then the titles and the authors are here on the reference, okay? So they're quite popular on Amazon. Like 5,000 people reviews or something like that. So those 4 or 5 on the list I highly recommend. I have some questions here that some parents submitted. Dr. Lau, if you could help answer. At what age should my daughter see a doctor to do a body check, specifically related to puberty milestones and development? So,
Actually, You don't really have to. Like, I think if you're in the US or you're used to the US system, they like to do one when you start to go through puberty or your first period has arrived. And it's actually really nice too, because it's a good opportunity to do a quick health screen. Things that can change quite quickly in puberty is the spine, so scoliosis.
We just did that last week.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So when you are entering into during the growth spurt of puberty, because you can grow really fast, like 3 inches, 2.5 inches in the first year, second year, and if there is a mild curve in the back, or if one develops, it can develop quite quickly in a short period of time, and it can't be missed. So you can do this at home, and I'm sure Dr. Lee with the scoliosis thing, talk you, bend forward, and just the hump, being on one side and another. This is something simple you can do at home. But it's always nice to be able to see a person and do a checkup, because if they've been a well person, if you guys have been well for a lot of years, probably haven't needed to see a doctor. So it's just nice to have a baseline check. And also to kind of check and touch base on how are they coping? How are you coping? There's a lot of changes. Do you feel comfortable with yourself? Do you feel comfortable with your body? Kind of questions that you may have specific to you about how your body is changing. Those are really good. It's a really good time to be able to talk with your family doctor as well.
Great. Dr. Lau, do you recommend a blood test or suggest any supplements at this age?
No.
Thank you.
I should have explained. This is for a person who has a well-rounded diet, who is growing normally. Yeah. So if there's some dietary restrictions because of health concerns, or more concerningly, if there's some self-imposed restrictions because of misinformation and coping mechanisms, then yes, then I would recommend blood tests, because as we said before, you can get easily iron deficient. Actually, 1/3 of women in their childbearing years are actually iron deficient. You just learn to cope, you just learn to live with a little bit of low iron and a bit of anemia, because your body is amazing, can do many things, but it's nice to optimize those things. So not everybody, most people should not need blood work. But if there's any concerns and you're not deathly afraid of needles, then it's always reassuring to be able to check things like your full blood count, iron, thyroid, and if there's anything else, like we throw in at that time vitamin D, because most people are deficient. It's nice to know the supplement you're taking, if it's at a good level. Sometimes we will check kind of just basic electrolytes, especially if you're concerned like this in malnutrition.
Excellent. On average, when does the menstrual cycle begin to normalize after a girl starts menstruating?
Yeah, usually in the first 1 to 2 years. If it hasn't normalized by after 2 years, then again, that's another good time to check in. Maybe you need an ultrasound, some blood work at that time to see if there's anything else going on, like polycystic ovaries. Is there something unusual with the ovary happening? Is there anything in the uterus? Usually no. Usually after you see the doctor, if you run some tests, and say, oh, a month or two later, everything is fine. But that would be kind of a ballpark time frame.
Okay. Please also talk about mental, emotional changes, which you've already done. Was
You
there
go on and on about
Yes,
this.
yes. Was there anything in particular that parents had a question or students had a question about emotional changes? This is a great segue into Q&A from you guys, the audience, if you have any. Anyone? Or you could take a moment to think while I show you some of these. Another question was, can you show us some period products? So as you're thinking of some questions, I might as well just bring this up. Uniqlo has some amazing products just for girls. So there was a picture.
Let me pull it up.
Yes. In the Uniqlo flagship store in Causeway Bay, they have a girls section. They have training bras, and they also have these undies, which are very important sanitary products. So they, yep, right there. That's what it looks like. With the, that's the section.
This is like a whole new world to me.
It's new for me too. And so they have sizes 140, 150, 160. And if you want to take a look and touch them and feel them, feel free to come down and take a look. This is, I think, the 160 size. This is the 140 size.
I want to have a touch of this.
Yes, it's a great material. It's like that sporty material, right?
Spandex.
So it wicks away the sweat. And what's great about these is that it has an inner lining that stays, you don't remove it or anything like that. And it's breathable. And any excess blood, you hand wash that off and then throw it in the laundry. And then there you go. And this is a great way, last week we had Green Week. Great way to think and be sustainable and think about the earth. And this is a wonderful, material. And then also,
It's kind of hot though for summer. Does it breathe okay?
This is new. 2 weeks. I
pass
I
it
bought
around?
them 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks. Feel free.
Yeah.
And so I
Feel
bought
free.
some for myself too. There's ladies versions. So I've only tried it once so far. So, and then also, I think all the brands are getting on the bandwagon. This is Marks and Spencer. I didn't see it in their girls section, but in the women's panty section, they have these period knickers, and the smallest size is size 6. And so I think some of our secondary girls can fit into the size 6s. Okay. So this is more cotton. So if you don't like the airism feel and you want more of a cotton feel, so there's that as well. And so there's no need for a traditional sanitary pad. You just wear this, and it has an odor-absorbing layer. So it's just like that. Yes,
You don't need to wear a pad.
exactly. Isn't that the greatest invention ever? And everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. So American Eagle has a women's, so I think in the near future, later this year, they're all going to have girl versions too. Yes, and in bathing suits. So there's no reason
I know you might be feeling
to
some
not
kind of
go to your PE class, swimming classes because you have a period. No, yes, there's no excuses at all. So if you come to the health office, say, I need to stay here and not go swimming, we'll say, throw on these panties, throw on these underwear, throw on this swimsuit, go to class, go to your swim class.
Really? If your size is small? Wow.
Uniqlo, Marks and Spencer, well, it's size 6 and up, but Uniqlo has sizes specifically for girls. Thinks and Ruby Love go on their website. Look at that. Is that the swim brand? Ruby Love. Ruby Love is the swim brand. Okay, ladies? So it's a great option. Yes. What else? Any questions? Now you guys had some time to think. Is that a hand back there? Any questions you would like to ask Dr. Lau? Questions? Question? Was that a question back there? Any questions for Dr. Lau? Okay, wonderful. I guess we must have answered everyone. Oh, there's a question. Okay, well done. There you go.
Dr. Lau, thank you very much for the session. So, just wonder for the girls, if you want them to grow taller, normally,
Growing
taller,
taller,
you want them to grow taller. So, normally, in which year, like what age they start to have this growth spurt? And also, what should we do to help them really to grow taller through the puberty period?
Yeah. Can I be like cheeky? Like every Asian parent's question, right? How do I get my kids to be taller? That's what I say to our sons, right? Like, your growth hormones secrete at about 9 p.m. and you have to be asleep before it secretes. So if you want to be tall, go to sleep early. Because, it's, not stretching the truth too much. By the time you hit puberty, you want to be able, I'm just trying to pull up the slide, to get that kind of sleep, right? These 3 things, for survival, but also for kind of optimizing your genetic potential. So, when your kids were little, you took them to the doctor and said, how tall do you think they'll be? there's a little thing that we use, the height of your mother plus your father, times by something divided by 2, and there's growth charts you can follow. But the predicted end height is actually quite a discrepancy. There's plus or minus about 5 centimeters. So I could have been this much taller if I slept, maybe. But if I didn't eat well, I could have been maybe this much shorter, this tall. So the most important thing is the genetic factor. Like, just quickly scanning the room. None of you are Scandinavian. Is anybody Scandinavian here? Like the most important thing for genetic potential is obviously your genes. So if you're from the Netherlands, you're gonna be like this, right? So there's only so much that eating right, sleeping, exercising will do, but within your genetic potential will do a lot. You can maximize it. You want to be sleeping well by the time you enter puberty. Preferably even the year before, because that's when your body's gearing up, getting ready. And the thing about the growth hormone is true, it does secrete when you're asleep. So if you're sleeping very late, it doesn't have as much time to work, so to speak. And once your spurt has started, it's so crucial because you're going to have a spurt for about a year, 2 years, and then you'll still grow at a faster pace, but it'll taper off. And if you don't maximize it in that time, then not all is lost, but you will miss that window because it really is a window. You can't go back to that time period.
I totally agree. Whenever I ask people with tall children what their secret is, I think it's really good sleep. That is the key and the secret. And that's also when you see people, girls and boys, with a growth spurt, it's always after summertime when they're sleeping a lot more, right? So that's also my theory too. Sleeping well, and good quality sleep will help.
And how about milk? How important is it to drink a lot more milk?
Oh, this is a controversial one. Yeah.
And if people are lactose intolerant,
Yeah.
what should they do?
Yeah. Then if you're lactose intolerant, then do that fortified almond, soy. People feel a bit funny about soy milk and like breast and things, but if you think about women in China, they have one of the lowest rates of breast cancer in the world, and they eat the most soy, right? So phytoestrogens I'm not too concerned about. I'm more concerned about bones, because you will lay on your maximum bone mass in your teenage years. Once you pass your teens, you cannot grow any more bone, but you can try to maintain it. And it's normally like this. You're about here at 18, and then it's like this. And then you menopause, and it's like this. And then it kind of continues to go down, but at a lower rate. So if you start up here, even if you lose kind of to here, you're still good. But if you never get strong bones in the first place, and you're kind of a bit brittle, that's why we really worry about girls with eating disorders, not just for their heart and for their brain development, but you don't want them to be 40 and they look like they're 80, like in a shrunk, and they fall over and then they break their hip. So, but it's controversial because a lot of people are on the dairy is evil kind of thought, and it does bad things to our body. I think all things in moderation. You don't want to be an 11-year-old and drinking like a litre of milk a day. That's too much. But you want to have foods with other sources of calcium, like fish with bones, sardines. Nuts have calcium. Actually, many things have calcium. It's just the amount of calcium they have. Soy is great. If you hate soy, go for something like almond milk. Be creative. If you have lactose intolerance, then see if that transcribes to yogurt, because many people can't tolerate milk, but they're good with cheeses, especially hard cheeses. Hard tofu and hard cheeses, like a cup of tofu, like 200 mils, 250 mils, that's like 400 milligrams of calcium, and a teenage girl needs about 1,000 a day. So rather than drinking 3.5 cups of milk, you can do tofu, almonds, other calcium-based products.
Excellent. Any last questions? Anyone have any more questions? Yes.
I'll ask you this question from me, What happens if I get get my period at school and I haven't got anything with me. What do I do? They say. Oh, that's a question for Julie.
Yes. So if it happens in school, you go to the bathroom, you get some tissues. The tissues in the girls' bathroom, I don't know what it looks like. If they're folded up, grab about 4 or 5, put them on your underwear, and then go to the health office. And we have plenty of sanitary products. Now, once you turn year 7, Anita Ma, one of our CISPTA organizers, her daughter and 2 of her friends are spearheading having feminine products available in all the female bathrooms in secondary. Because the trek is so far away to go to the health office, right? That, you know, so we're in the process, and they're in charge of marketing and letting all the girls in secondary know. But be on the lookout, year 7s and year 6s, when you go over to your secondary next year, in the girls' bathrooms, there will be sanitary products available for you.
It's amazing.
Yes. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, here.
Well, actually, this is a question for you as well. So, has actually, I know the school is actually in the process of changing the uniform. Have we actually thought about, in terms of the color, that's better for girls, especially during the sensitive time? So, for example, if you kind of have the white something, whether it's actually suitable for all girls, maybe that's something that people can actually take into consideration.
Thank you for that comment. I guess you're right, with the Vision 33, everything's changing. I'm sure the uniforms will be changing too. So I will bring that up to people in charge. Thank you. But yeah, if with the white tops that the primary girls are wearing now, it's very sensitive. And even if you don't need a training bra, Uniqlo, you know, the training tops, the tank tops, that might be an option just to keep things, you know, not peeking through or showing through white tops. Okay. There was another question here. Question here before I go around on the other side. Okay. Can I go this way? I don't think I think the other way might be locked. So. Okay, last question.
I was just curious if that sort of hormonal surge, like how long does it take before it normalizes and sort of the mood swings and all that craziness starts to settle a bit?
Oh. Well, yeah. Every month it comes back. The greatest will be in the first few years when there's the growth spurt, because the brain in many ways hasn't matured yet, and as you know, the brain is still maturing over time until that's about 25. You're about 25. But because it hasn't been used to these new chemical surges, these messengers it's getting, it can feel really erratic. So usually that first year or two can be the most volatile in terms of the expanse of the expressed emotions. But you'll notice that maybe after 2-3 years, and again, remember everybody is different. Some people are just like this, and some people are like this. But if you have somebody, or you yourself are going through this, and you feel like one day you feel like laughing and crying, and the other day you feel like crying and really sad, and there's lots of crying in between, know that after the first few years, there's still the variation, but it won't be as volatile, it won't be as extreme, because your brain learns. And it knows like, okay, when I feel this way, I can expect this to happen or that to happen, and it can learn to regulate. But you know, I'd say ballpark, and again it's really different, but I'd say usually by the time a girl has had her period and it's regular for about 4 years, it seems like there's, for most girls anyway, that moodiness, it starts to be more monthly, put it that way, rather than every day. Don't be frightened. For most people, it's not every day. It's like they feel like I'm painting a negative picture. It isn't. It's a wonderful thing. You experience emotions that you never have before, and a great range of them.
On that note, thank you so much, Dr. Lau.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
Have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thank your moms for making the time and effort to come and listen to this talk with you. Thank you, Principal Guard, for allowing this to happen in school so that the things open up. Thank you, Alethea and Anita. She's in the cafeteria setting up, to the CISPTA parents that helped organize this. So we wanted to give you a little gift of gratitude. Yes, this is very swaggy. This is from